Minds. It's a brotherly podcast where we explore incredible stories of people from all walks of life. We are your hosts, Dom and Justin Mazza, two brothers interviewing some really interesting people. This podcast is brought to you by SeatGeek. Use code word SkippersView for $20 off your first purchase.
So, Dom, our guest today is none other than Christina Mazza, our cousin. She is a nurse with outpatient and inpatient experience. She's a forever student. She is a recent homeowner just kind of before the pandemic, so we'll get into that, and an aunt to two crazy nephews. So really looking forward to talking to Christina today.
Great, yeah, as am I. Some of the topics we're going to talk on today, being a nurse in the healthcare field, and especially what was her experience like during COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to talk about what it's like to be single in your 30s, so some juicy gossip with that one. We're going to talk about what it's like to be a homeowner. I am going to be purchasing a home maybe in the next 5 years, so I'm always trying to pick brains of newer homeowners, see what the ins and outs are with that. And then lastly, we're going to talk about just being what a forever student means, both formally and informally, how that affects, our daily decisions.
Sounds good. But Dom, as always, are you drinking anything good this Monday evening?
Of course.
What are we rocking?
I am, I'm drinking an interesting thing. So when we went to Paris, we had this Saint Germain drink, which I've never had before.
Saint Germain Spritz, yep.
For the people that don't know what that is, I don't really know what it is, to be honest. But it definitely has elderflower in it, so it's very floral. Kind of tastes like some chamomile tea, but it's really, really good. And I put it on some gin, and I found this great company, not sponsored yet. They do a lavender or an elderflower tonic water, so it kind of just blends perfectly together. So that's what I've been drinking these last few nights. Really love it.
Nice.
What about you? That looked pretty fruity. What you got?
I went French as well. It's French take on a French 75. So that's also a gin-based cocktail. So I did, it's usually gin, lemon juice, simple syrup, and champagne. I had no lemon juice floating around. I had a ton of oranges from the weekend, so we went with an orange. So it's pretty good.
Did you put orange juice in there?
I did, yeah. Squeezed orange. I have, as you know, still working off my pumpkin simple syrup. So it's really good. Pumpkin and orange, really nice compliment. And this time I know how old the champagne was. We just opened it up yesterday. So fresh champagne, trying to go through it.
Why do you have so many oranges on deck?
So Lindsay's bridal party proposal was yesterday. So we had oranges and champagne and a bunch of charcuterie meats and a ton of Italian cookies still left over.
How many Aperol spritzes were had?
I don't think so. We did a mimosa bar instead. That was the theme. So it was brunch. We did mini chicken and waffles, which was a big hit. Some ricotta, fig and almond thing. I don't know. I was kind of slaving over a stove for 3 hours straight, but it came out good. Everyone said yes, so good things.
Okay, two thumbs up from this guy over here.
That's it. So good stuff. So what do you think? We bring on Christina?
Yeah.
I think you look concerned about that.
I was thinking about something, but I'll ask Christina.
All right, that sounds good. So Christina, what's going on? How are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
We're really good. We're looking forward to next.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous that you guys get to have cocktails now. I'm in my fasting window, so I'm just happily drinking my water here.
Okay, well, that's a quick spin. So what does that mean? Fasting window. What does it look like daily for you?
Oh, so I started intermittent fasting about, probably 2 months in now. So my eating window is 12 noon to 8 p.m. So
not bad.
Really the hardest part, skipping breakfast was easy. The hardest part was coffee. But now I'm down to black coffee in the morning. So it's a little rough, but you get used to it. Probably getting an ulcer, but at least I'm intermittent fasting, so.
Oh, you're still young. You got time.
I'm still young. I'll recover.
It's got to be tough waking up so early and not having anything until noon.
Yeah. You get used to it pretty quickly. And when I'm hungry, I just drink water.
We went to a wedding on Friday. I don't know, we got to bed finally at 2 a.m. or so. So I slept in till, I don't know, call it 8:30 or so. I had pickleball in the morning. And I just kind of decided, you know what, I'm just going to fast until we had a housewarming party at 4:30.
Yeah.
And I found out if you sleep in and you have things to occupy your time, it's pretty
Yup.
easy to eat.
I would agree. I have to do my errands in the morning on the weekends, distract
Right.
myself, and just get it done.
Wait, Christina,
Also, could
did I
you
tell
like
you about?
sleep in? Because I feel like now that I'm old, I can't sleep in anymore. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, I can never sleep till 8:30.
I wake up, whatever it is, 7 o'clock. Like, I got nothing else to do in a way, so might as well just rest
Oh,
my body.
yeah.
And, I'm getting sore here and there, so it's nice to just lay in bed. Even if I'm not sleeping, it's nice to just relax.
Yeah. Sorry, Dom, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, did you hear about my fast that I did?
No.
Oh,
Was it like a 48-hour thing? Because I can't.
I did what's called a fasting mimicking diet, which is it's a program through this company called Prolon.
Mm-hmm.
I gave a talk in my school, maybe 5 years ago, and I've always been, trying to try it. But what it is they give you this meal kit, right? So everything is planned out for you,
Okay.
and basically you're consuming about 750 calories a day for 5 days,
And
and it's supposed to simulate your body being in that fasted state.
fasting
You get all
mode?
the
Yeah.
benefits, yeah, and autophagy. And I did that maybe like 3 weeks ago, and it was terrible. I did not have fun doing it. I realized that like so much of my time is spent cooking, cleaning, and exercising, which I wasn't doing any of that. And I was like,
Yeah.
damn, I'm kind of bored. And like you don't have like
So,
you're
also
not
on
super
a diet
energetic.
like that, do they advise you not to work out
Yeah,
because it's too much like caloric burn that you're not getting
exactly.
back?
They
So,
advise you to like do, like yoga and gentle walking and stuff like that.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're supposed to do it once a week for 3 months, and that's what the studies were based off of. But I was
Okay.
like, I'm good. I just wanted to like kind of reinvent my relationship with food.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
So
tough.
it's kind of
I
funny that
dropped
you
like,
said the research
yeah,
because the research on intermittent fasting is very kind of like up in the air because they're very short-term studies. No one has really studied like the long-term effects,
like a 30
beyond the
year.
year. Yeah,
Yeah.
like a through the years kind of study. So, what's the best fasting window?
I know.
Is it 8 hours? Is it 6 hours? Is it better in the morning? Is it better in the evening? There's like so much controversy over it. But I'm like, commit to what you can commit to. And
Exactly.
if you feel like it's working for you, it's working for you. And
Yeah,
it's working for me. So,
different strokes for different folks.
exactly.
I lost like 8 pounds in 5 days.
Just in 5 days.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then I like put it on back like within 3 days.
Well, I have a wedding coming up, so maybe that'll be helpful.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
what's this source, Tyler? Medicine Net.
Medicine net. Yeah. Yeah. So 16-8 method. Yep. That's what I do.
Yeah. Well, good for you, sister. Good for you.
Yep. Yep.
All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
So,
Reel us back in, Justin.
yeah,
Okay.
I think so. We went off on a tangent, but that's all right. So maybe before Christina would get into it, just a quick breakdown of who you are to us. So
Okay.
our dads are identical twins, been best friends since birth, literally. They
Mm-hmm.
currently live 15 minutes away from each other. So we kind of grew up down the block from you guys in a way. Really nice, I think, to have that relationship. And now, like more recently, you're playing pickleball with us. We're starting to see you more and more instead of just, holidays or get-togethers. It's nice to kind of
Mm-hmm.
hang out with you more, which is fun. So that's I think that's cool. Just that we have, not many people have twins in the family. So, and it's cool that our twin dads are actually close. Like I know other stories of just families moving away. So it's kind of cool. So
Absolutely.
anyway, let's get into a little bit of your career path. So healthcare. Let's walk through that. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
influences, mentorships along the way. Maybe starting with what kind of nurse are you now? I'm not even quite sure. So
Yeah. Okay, sure. So, my father is in medicine, as is your father. My mother is also in medicine. She is a PA. My dad is a retired physician. So I always wanted something in medicine. Originally, it was psychology, and then I studied abroad, and I just wanted to do things faster. I wanted a little quicker pace. So I decided to abandon psychology. I didn't want to, go that route anymore, and I chose nursing. I finished my degree, and it's funny because my parents both work in pediatrics, so I thought, no, I don't want to do kids. I don't want to do that. That's what they do. But the universe had other plans because when I was in nursing school, I was always matched with kids. For community health, I was put into the school districts. For psych, I was put into children's psych. And then for my final capstone, I was put in the PZR. So I was like, all right, let me give this a shot. And when I started my practice, I jumped right into pediatrics and pediatric ICU, which I loved. And that was my base for a long time. I'm certified in pediatrics now, and I really loved that career. But the pandemic hit, and they decided to close the pediatric ICU and the pediatric floor to peds patients. And they turned us into a COVID ICU for adult patients. So after that experience, I decided I needed a change of pace, and the hospital was building a new building. So I moved into the outpatient setting, and now I work in ambulatory surgery. And for those of you who don't work in healthcare, ambulatory surgery are the surgeries you go home after. So fixing broken bones, little like tumor removals, cyst removals. Sometimes it's something bigger like a hernia, but all the patients go home after the surgery is the bottom line. So that is where I am now.
So
nice.
like taking a step back with the education, I hear an echo I think on your end. Oh, it's
on my end, probably.
Yeah, that's all right. I guess when you switched from psychology did you have to make up classes, and also how long is nursing, or what are the different routes with the nursing undergrad?
Oh, there are so many. So basically, there are 2 degrees you can get from nursing. You can have your bachelor's degree in nursing, which is what I have, or you can get your LPN, which you're a licensed practice nurse. That is the other avenue you can go. At the end of both programs, we take the same licensing degree. So it's called the NCLEX. So both avenues, whether it's a bachelor's or an associate's degree nurse, take the same nursing licensing exam. But it is harder to get a job when you only have your associate's degree. Most hospitals want you to have your bachelor's degree. It's part of the hospital's accreditation process for what's called magnet, which is like a symbol of excellence, which is what every hospital wants. And part of the magnet trio is that people have their bachelor's.
There's the famous clock that goes off. Does it go off every 30 minutes?
30 minutes?
It goes off every quarter hour.
What?
And then at the top of the hour, it does at 9 o'clock, it will go off 9 times.
Why do you need that?
Because it was my grandmother's, and now she's dead, and somebody had to take the freaking clock.
Wow.
You're like, yeah.
So,
I mean, I know that Italian guilt is strong.
Yeah.
So you got the short end on that one.
Yeah.
Where does the master's come into play in nursing? Is that needed? Is that you have your master's? What degrees do you even have?
Yeah. So I have my master's in nursing, specializing in education, and I have my master's in global health. So global health was kind of like a fun one for me. basically, I had a patient once who came over from Bangladesh, covered in scarring for a procedure. He had diverticulitis. Like in the United States, it's so easy. It's diet modifications, it's an addition of one or two medications. But in Bangladesh, that meant surgery. They took out part of his intestines, and it was like a whole mess. And I was like, what is healthcare like around the world? Like, why does this happen? So that's what led me to my first degree. And then my second degree, nursing education, is I wanted to teach. I wanted to lecture. Turns out you need your PhD to do that. So that may be the next phase, but a master's in nursing is not required to work anywhere. It just looks nice on your resume.
All right, that's good to know. I know we'll get into education in school a little bit later. So I think you touched on this a little bit. Your area of the hospital was closed down during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Maybe, I guess, what was healthcare or nursing? I guess how has the pandemic changed things, and then maybe also get into, if it's all right, like what was healthcare like during the pandemic?
Yeah. I think for me, well, healthcare has changed a lot, I think, post-pandemic. I find that providers are a little bit shorter in terms of like having patients for, nonsense and for silly things. And I think patients kind of feel the same way. So it's a little bit of a harder balance for us now. The pandemic was horrible. I will say it's one thing that the media did not over exaggerate. Morgues being overrun with bodies was true. The coolers out in the streets were true. And it was a horrible time to work in a hospital and to be part of the field. For me personally, it wasn't just being surrounded by death. It was also being surrounded by patients that I was unfamiliar with. I'm used to little people who recover and who are resilient. I'm not used to adults that have all of these other problems. It wasn't just COVID for them. It was they have high blood pressure, they're diabetic, they have kidney disease, they have all these other issues going on with them. And I wasn't used to that, managing that acute of a patient. And, in a sense, every day we played God, and was it right? Was it fair? Probably not, but equipment was limited. Supplies were limited. A patient who needed a full day of dialysis would get 6 hours, and then the machine had to go to someone else. Someone else needed a full day and they would only get their 6 hours. So, that was life for us. Turnover in terms of patients was high. I remember, I think my worst shift was we coded a patient, and also you don't have the same time to code a patient for. Normally we would go maybe 3 or 4 rounds of meds and compressions to get patients back. COVID patients, we did one and done. So they got one round of meds, one round of compressions, and if they didn't come back, that was it. We moved on. So we coded the patient next door coded. But like, no one leave, let's go next door, let's code this patient. They both died. And the attending comes over to me and he's like, I hate doing this to you. He's like, but we got to get these patients prepped and down to the morgue because we have 2 more just like them waiting in the ER. And, those were the days, and those were the reality of our days. And it's hard. It's one of those things where you're like, I don't want to be here, but where else am I supposed to be? You definitely felt that obligation to, I am a healthcare worker, and there's nothing for me to do at home, right? I can't see anybody. I can't go anywhere. I should be here. So instead of working my 3 or 4 days a week, I would work 5 or 6 days a week. Again, was it the right thing to do? I don't know, but it was what I felt I needed to do.
Chris, can you explain what a code is for people?
Yeah, sure. So you could have a lot of different kinds of codes. Um, this one, these were obviously respiratory codes, and these codes were a little bit different because these patients were already intubated, meaning they already had a breathing tube in. So normally a code would be if a patient goes into like respiratory failure, if their respiratory rate is dropping too rapidly and you see they're not breathing properly. Or, of course, the most common one that you see on TV is they flatline, right? They have no heartbeat anymore. So what you would do is you would start the chest compressions like they always do on television. Um, Depending on what their heart rhythm is, you can treat it either with medications or with a defibrillator. So we would use that. And if they weren't breathing on their own, we would then put the breathing tube in. Of course, these patients all already had it, so that was a step that we could skip over. But we used to do the compressions and a round of medications, and shock if it was indicated with the defibrillator. If not, that was kind of it. And also, you have to remember that these people had no families there either, right? So you were not only the nurse, but you were also their only family, and their only connection to their family. So you had that, I guess, emotional baggage to take home with you as well. Not only the trauma of losing a patient, but the trauma of losing a family member. That's kind of what it felt like for us. So,
So
yeah, it was.
maybe Christina just
Yeah.
I mean, talk about like you're a relatively young professional, plenty of young professionals. I know I had a lot of friends actually leave the healthcare field after COVID-19, just dealing with the trauma and the I'm assuming the PTSD that comes
Yeah.
from that. Like, how did healthcare workers or nurses in particular, like, did you guys band together? Did you talk about these things? Do you talk about them now? Like, or is it just we just did our job and you keep going?
A little bit of both. I think in the moment you kind of just did your job and kept it moving. There would be times when you were just like, I need a minute. And you go into the supply closet and have a good cry, or you do what you have to do and then come back in. um, I think it was interesting because for a time in the height of the pandemic they were actually offering us hotel rooms close to the hospital so we didn't go home and risk infecting our families. So a lot of nurses took the hospital up on that. So then they were kind of like hanging out in hotel rooms and it like kind of became like a frat house. They would like find like any open bodega and just, get beer and alcohol and just kind of like rage. And that was their outlet. And I think that helped a lot for them. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. I think now that things have quieted down, I think a lot of us are starting to unpack our trauma. Um, it's interesting. I definitely during the pandemic I had a lot of insomnia. I didn't sleep well. Either I heard the monitors buzzing in my head, or I saw the faces of the patients I lost, and it was a really hard time for me. Um, Even now, I still have, things that I have to deal with. But, you know, people say it's what you signed up for. And I'm like, this is not what I signed up for at all as a healthcare worker. Yes, I signed up to save lives, not pick and choose who lives. And at one point, that's kind of what it felt like. So, no, this is not what I signed up for at all. And I hate that. But yeah, I think to go back to your point though, I know a lot of nurses have left the profession. It's kind of a staggering amount, actually, if you look at the statistics. And if you look at the amount of people who hold nursing licenses and aren't actually practicing, I think those are the statistics that they look at, and it's risen significantly. People holding licenses and not using them, and I could see why. It's a demanding profession physically and emotionally. Um, and I think if it's something you don't have the passion for, don't go into it. It's not, people are like, oh, it's great money. And I'm like, yeah, it is. But if you don't have the heart for it, you will be miserable every single day.
Yeah.
Luckily for me now, I don't work weekends and holidays, so I will never complain. But yeah, that was my COVID experience. It was an interesting time.
First, I want to talk about my experience with the code. I told Justin, uh, Chris, thanks for telling us all that experience that you had with codes, and I wanted to talk about my limited experience with codes. Now, I work in the outpatient setting, so I've never really been a part of a code. I go, and I told Justin this story, and I told my dad because my blood was pumping. Um, I went to the gym the other day, and like one of the doors was locked, and one of the girls was trying to get in, and I was like, "Oh, is the door locked?" And she's like, "They have the defibrillator out." So like, I go around, and these three people are pumping on this dude's chest. Like he doesn't have a pulse, not breathing. We're hearing like these like gasps like come from him, so it sounds like he's kind of like choking on something. But
Those are probably agonal breaths, and those
yeah,
are
so
probably
so
his
I
last
heard
breaths.
that is normal to like hear these sounds. Yeah. So I think it was an emergency room PA, an emergency room nurse, and fortunately the guy who runs the BLS certification classes was taking a workout class that day. So, these three were pumping on this dude. It was fucking wild to see. And luckily they did bring him back while EMS was coming, and then EMS came, and I haven't heard a follow up from him, but I'm pretty sure he's okay. Like he made it out of that thing, but it was like really scary to see. Like his face was turning blue, like, and I'm BLS certified, and everyone in my office is up for recertification. So I was like, this is a sign we all need to prioritize getting recertified. And it's like, I don't know, for all the people, so many people have to take BLS certifications, which is basic life support. I think that's what BLS stands for. But like every like teacher, librarians, like people who are probably never going to use it, including myself, who works in like an outpatient setting. We see relatively healthy individuals. So anytime you take like a BLS certification, you kind of just like take it to pass the course. Plus, there was COVID, so like they were preaching like sanitizing everything. So it was like, oh, like don't bother doing like uh, breathing exercises and things like that. Like just pretend, just pretend. And now that I saw this in the wild, I was like, holy shit! Next time I take it, I am.
Isn't it incredible?
Yeah,
Have you
I'm gonna
seen
take
those
it
memes?
really.
Have you seen those memes? And it's like my health goal is to not look like I need CPR after doing 2 minutes of CPR. It is
Well,
so true. It is so taxing. It's so
I always
crazy.
have the staying alive from The Office in my head. Even like during them doing it, I was like, it was kind of cool. It was like watching a video. She was like, allow for full recoil, stuff like that. And I was like, I offered my support that if somebody needed, me to tag in for it. But I was like, thank God I wasn't the one having to start all of this. I mean,
Yeah.
I could probably do it, but you have 15, 30 seconds to like act, right? Before you start seeing some irreversible damage. But that was just a little
Yeah.
story I had with codes. And then I told my dad that, and he was telling me all of his code stories, and he was kind of a badass, to be honest. Like he told me some stories that were like recent from like the last year where
Honestly,
like,
your dad kind of is a badass and he's had a really cool career. So if he would
yeah.
ever agree to coming on this podcast, he would be cool to like hear his stories because
Well, Yeah,
In
he
the
was.
90s, he was kind of like a pioneer. No one wanted to work with HIV patients. And
Yeah,
he's like, I'll do this.
I don't
So,
even know that about him. But he was telling me where like he did like a femoral catheter and like he was telling me how he found a pulse on someone who doesn't have a pulse and he was like using the people's like compressions to actually feel the pulse. I was like, damn, Dad, like that's some movie shit right there. I was very proud of him when he said that. But I digress. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that you mentioned
mhm.
with the hospital. You're one of the few nurses that I know that's worked in both inpatient and outpatient setting. You're currently in the outpatient setting, and I just want to get your take on what it's been like to have that outpatient setting. I know it seems a lot less stressful. Would you agree?
I would agree completely. It's much less stressful. I think it definitely is very department specific, I would say. Because I know in my building we also have the infusion center that does like the chemotherapy, and they are extremely busy. And they see a lot of patient volume. For us, they're still building the patient volume for the surgical setting. So it's been kind of chill. And especially this time of year, it's been kind of chill because patients are getting sick and they're canceling a lot, which is great for us.
All right, Chris, do you have any advice to young potential nurses who maybe are just getting in the field or just started their career and thinking about what direction they want to take it?
Yeah, I would say feel it out. Um, don't feel like your first job has to be your forever job. Move around, try a lot of different specialties, and network with your fellow nurses. It's great if you can find a mentor or someone you can go to for advice, but even just talking to your coworkers and listening to their experiences and what they have done with their careers can be really helpful in guiding your own career. And nursing is a huge field, so working in a hospital is definitely not the only thing you can do. So feel free to dream big.
Great, that's awesome. Yeah, I think the mentor is a common theme that we're going to be touching on in the show, especially as you're a young person in your profession, because you really only learn that there's, I don't know, one or two things that you can do with your degree. For instance, being a nurse, right? Like, you probably only think about it from what you've seen on TV, which is mostly nurses in hospitals, right? That's what you associate with nurses.
Correct.
Oh,
Yeah.
night shifts, 12-hour shifts, yada, yada, yada. But like you were saying, there's so many different paths that your career can take. And really just talking to people who have been in the field long enough, they can, give some insight into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, switching gears a bit, Christina, to hopefully something a little bit more lighthearted. Uh, what what's it like being single? And the reason I'm asking, I'm getting married next year. Have been single for a while. I guess I'm curious from your perspective. Uh, and how old are you? 34, 33?
33, right? It's 2023. Then I am
Question mark?
33.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry to put another year on you. Uh, so what's the difference of kind of dating now and um, like I still think like online is still the way to meet people. Am I right? Am I wrong there? I'm just curious.
It's definitely the most common way to do it. Is it my way? Not really. I feel like you can tell a lot by a person just in that first meeting and that first interaction. Um, and that's why I prefer to meet people in person, either through, friends, coworkers, whatever connection that may be. Just because I feel like I can tell a lot about a person and how we're going to get along in those first, few minutes. Um, and I don't want to waste my time with the online stuff because I feel like it's a lot of lead up into a meetup, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, the
I know you're
online.
going to disagree with me because we know so many couples who have met online, but
I guess by proxy, I'm an online couple, right? Someone I met online eventually introduced me to my
Yeah, it's
fiance.
a pretty unique situation,
It's
Justin,
just
that
totally
you
weird,
found
right?
yourself in.
I mean, it is
Why don't you
interesting.
tell people about that?
Yeah, right. So, Lindsay, my fiance's best friend, Jen, who is also now engaged, actually. Um, we went on a virtual date at kind of the height of COVID. I don't know what it was, maybe May or so, and that did not work out for sure. We had a 1 hour date, didn't work out. And I don't know, maybe about a month later, she passed my number along to Lindsay, and just had a couple
What
of
a
virtual
good
dates
friend
ourselves.
that she
I
is.
know. And
Supposedly,
Lindsay called
Lindsay,
you?
yeah. So supposedly, Lindsay was in the room
Damn.
while we were on that virtual date, me and Jen, and like heard all these weird things that I was saying. I
I'm
guess.
like, wow, she took a leap of faith, but she was in the room. So she was kind of on the date with you already.
So she texted me on a Sunday, and I was golfing, so I didn't respond for like 6 or 7 hours, whatever it was. So she thought like I would never respond, like it was just kind of I guess not even a ghost because we never talked, but whatever it is, a flake. Yeah, we just went on a couple virtual dates, and we decided. Pandemic dating was very different for sure. Like if you were gonna date someone, I was seeing like other people at the beginning of the pandemic, and just one, I didn't feel comfortable like seeing multiple people because you never know kind of what's going on. And two, just kind of met Lindsay at the right time in my life where it just was easy to commit to that. So super weird situation for sure. I do agree, kind of Christina, what you're saying. The online dating always felt to me like an interview more than a date. Like the first was a pre-screen of if you're gonna go and spend time, and usually in a man's case, spend money as well with this person. And if you didn't get along for like a 45-minute, whatever virtual conversation or and this is like I'm probably asking more with the virtual conversation. Probably, if you meet on Hinge or Tinder, you're probably just chatting, right? You don't even get to the virtual part of it. You say, I want to meet at a bar. So it's a little different now.
Because it's a game. It's like,
I
It's
oh,
that stuff,
I was
they
just
right?
about
took
to say, yeah.
they took 6 hours to respond. So like I can't take like 10 minutes to
Yeah.
respond. I have
I
to
have to
wait like
take
an
at least
equal
six and a
time.
half.
Yeah, and it just becomes this game of cat and mouse that usually never goes anywhere.
So, like Christina, what I guess how then if it's not online, right? What are the settings that you can meet a partner in today's world? And like, where I guess I think of college, right? If you go away to college, the dorms or whatever, or even if not, like classrooms, right? That's an easy social setting, or functional groups, stuff like that. In your
Yeah, for
career,
sure.
probably people at
Um,
work.
I actually think something like you're involved in, Justin. I think a lot of people meet in social sports now. So we just started playing pickleball, like you said. So it's things like that, signing up for those group activities. I know a friend who, met they're married now, but he met his, I guess, future wife at an intramural kickball league,
Cool.
which I mean, I
Not
don't know.
mine.
Meet a woman at kickball. I mean, but
Wait,
okay.
it wasn't LA Kick?
No, it was not LI Kick. That's how Mike and Laura met. They met living in Astoria. They met at a kickball league. I don't know what league it was, but it was
Pretty
There's
not
cool.
more
LI Kick.
leagues, Justin, than just
But
LI Kick out there.
yeah,
No, not Long Island.
I
Long
know.
Island's largest intramural sports league. Come on,
Yeah. So
Shout out LI
sports,
Kick.
little plug.
um, the workplace, I tend to shy away from, but maybe in
Nah.
there if what's that expression? You don't shit where you eat. So
That's what went on in my head. Yeah.
yeah, it usually doesn't end well, but what if it doesn't end? What if you end up marrying the partner?
Yeah.
So gotta keep an open mind wherever you can, because I think once you reach a certain age, there are those pressures to meet the societal expectation of getting married and starting a family, and women can't do that forever, right? Our biological clock is ticking for
Sure.
all those My Cousin Minnie fans out there. So, it's hard, I guess, to find that balance because I feel like, in your 20s, you waste a lot of time because you think you have a ton of time. So, in your 20s, nothing has to be serious. It could all be for fun. you could date all the wrong people. And I'm not knocking dating in your 20s by any means, because I feel like by dating all the wrong people, I knew what I didn't want and what I wanted to avoid for future relationships. You know, the guy who is not going to call you back is not going to change. He will still be a jerk and never call you back. You need to move on, you know? So that way, when you come across him again, you don't make that same mistake, wasting 6 months trying to get him to change. Um, so you learn those valuable lessons in your 20s, and then you hit your 30s, and then you're like, okay, now I can only date for like true potential partners. And then you're kind of putting pressure on yourself right at the beginning. So now I kind of take that attitude that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
No, leave it in.
That was a short one. That was a short one with the clock.
Yeah.
I take the attitude that if it's going to happen, it'll happen, you know, either organically or not. And if it doesn't happen, that's fine too. I mean, a lot of people stay single. Even a lot of couples now, I find, are choosing not to have children. So,
Dinks.
I think, yeah, dinks, right? Dual income, no kids.
Wait, did we talk about dildos?
What?
Dual income, little dog owners.
Little dog.
All right, that's new.
That's fun. It's interesting. I always hear the thought, if what happened will happen, and maybe not like the kids thing for sure. I get the partner thing. You know, everyone talks about like if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, but you have to put yourself in situations where it could be, right? And like that's the challenging part. And obviously, as a working professional, you're an aunt, you're right a sister, you're all these other things in your life. You have other interests than just trying to meet a partner. You're also like a very self-sufficient and independent woman, right? Which is, you've never relied on a partner for
which works in my favor, but oddly enough, I feel like in terms of relationship is actually harder.
Yeah.
I mean, we say we want to break the societal norms and the societal, I guess, gender norms, but it's a hard thing to break, when it's ingrained in you. And it's not to say our parents totally screwed us up, but, as kids, you watch the dad goes out to work, the mom stays home with the kids, and it's just when that dynamic is, when you see it at such a young age and it sets your example, it's kind of different. I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by strong women in my life. And that was my example. I mean, my mom she was home with us briefly when I was kids, but I always remember my mom working, and having an income and, bettering her career. And even my grandmothers, yes, they both were stay-at-home moms and had no traditional career, but they were strong women. They had no problem speaking their mind, speaking their opinion, and making themselves heard. So I had that strong feminine example, so I was really lucky.
And I think the age expectations are different now than they were 10, 15 years ago. I think about our cousin Frances, who's getting married, and I don't want her to be angry at me, but she's 40? She's around 40. Anybody know? 38 maybe?
39?
Whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
And, she met this great guy that she loves, and now she's getting married, right? So, you brought it back to that biological clock, and yes, that is something that you have to consider if you're planning on having a child. You ever think about freezing those eggs? I don't even know what that process looks like.
Oh my God, yes. I actually had like a coworker going through IVF, and she's a few years older than me, and she was like, "Oh, I wish I had thought about this at your age. I totally would have frozen my eggs, and that way when I'm doing IVF at 39, at least my eggs are still 32." And I was like, "What?"
So wild.
Oh,
But you like
it's so wild.
you keep them in a bank, right?
Yes, so you have to obviously pay for like the lead up, the hormones. You have to
Yeah.
pay for the harvesting. And then basically they go into frozen storage and you have to pay storage for them annually. So it is
Storage
not,
fee
and it's like $1,200 a year. It's not cheap either. It's quite an expensive process.
added on to the mortgage.
Just roll it all over.
Speaking
Yeah.
of mortgages,
Oh, speaking of mortgages, do we go into owning a home now?
I think
Or
so.
I yeah.
It kind of sucks, right? I mean, maybe to
it
frame this
does suck.
situation. So I've been in my home just over 3 years now, which is pretty cool. I think you've been 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Years. Um, I know a lot of folks are buying their first home right now. It is a bloodbath out there,
It
right?
is insane. It is like savage, the housing market right now. I feel so bad for people buying now.
Yeah, I mean, and there's so many reasons behind that, but I think for me, so circle back like 3 4 years actually. I was looking for about a year actually towards Queens because I wanted to live closer to work. I wanted to be able to take a subway to work instead of an hour train ride. So I was looking at Forest Hills. I was getting so frustrated because it was paying $800 $900 a square foot, which I'm like, what the hell is this? In order to live there, and a 1 bedroom, 1 bath, like nothing spectacular. Got super frustrated with everything, and then honestly the pandemic hit and just changed my frame of reference to what I wanted out of my home. I still wanted to live in like an apartment style setting, like condo, co-op, because honestly I didn't want to like cut grass or like worry about the outside of my house. And it's a weird thing why. It's because I think my dad's house, or dad's house, was getting hit with like bad leaks at the time. And I just remember him spending like 5 10 grand just like throwing away money to fix a leak. And then the next thing would happen, the siding went out, right, from wind, and like that cost another grand. I
Owning a
started doing the
home is
calculation.
truly like an endless money pit. It
I,
never
I
ends.
tell everyone that, and it's not just like that kind of stuff, but it's things you don't think about, like replacing your water filters, like $100 for their fridge, right? And it's like that doesn't sound like a lot, but then you look at your air conditioned filters, and that's another $200. I just went through like my first wave of real light bulb replacements everywhere, and like LED lights are expensive, and I'm holy, and that's just like the bare necessities to live. Then you have to furnish the home. There's closing costs and all that. So maybe just like what was your home owner experience, and like what did that look like?
Yeah. So originally it started as I was looking for apartments as well. The guy I was seeing at the time, he's like, "Oh, my lease is up. Like, we should start looking for 2 bedrooms." And I like thought he was joking, but he was actually kind of serious. And I was like, "Okay." So that started the hunt. Obviously, it did not work out because I live in this house by myself. But rents were kind of ridiculously expensive. Dom's laughing over there. But rents were like 2,600 a month for 2 bedrooms. And I was like, that has to be a mortgage. Like, this is kind of crazy. Um, and my sister had purchased her home earlier in the year. And I was like, let me just meet with the realtor and see, what's out there. Um, and it's really not meeting with a realtor, it's really meeting with a mortgage broker or the money guy to figure out what you can pay in a mortgage and start accruing equity in a property versus what you're going to pay in rent. Because to me, paying rent is literally throwing away money. You're getting nothing back for your return. At least if you're owning a home, credit points and things like that. So for me, it was really talking to the money guy and seeing what I could afford. Um, and being single, that means one income, right? So you really kind of have to focus more on the money aspect of it. um, but I think having a good team, especially when you're a first time home. You need a good team. Like there were things I never even would have thought about, and my realtor was like, absolutely not. Like I saw this house that I loved. It was a foreclosure. It was like 5 bedrooms, 3 baths, beautiful house. Definitely needed a lot of work, but I have a friend who's a contractor. I knew he would do all the work for me. Um, and we walk into the house, and I like put my hand on the railing, and she slaps my hand, and I was like, "What is wrong with you?" And she's like, "There's mold. We're getting out of here." And I was like, "No, you can get rid of mold." She's like, "Yeah, for like 20 grand, you can get rid of mold." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, thank you for saving me all that money. Bye. We don't have to ever look at this house again. So, having a good team with you is really helpful just to like know what to look for. Like, is the roof good or the windows good? You know, all that kind of like not fun stuff that could very easily be hidden by the sellers. You kind of have to start looking for.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You talk about the story piece. So hopefully my former real estate agent never hears this, but like she was completely useless. Like she didn't do anything for me. But I think also at that point I was doing so much of the legwork myself. I just kind of sent her all these homes, and it's such a weird like. It's crazy to tell my friends this now, right? Make an offer on a Monday, $20,000 under asking, and it's accepted on a Tuesday morning. Like that was the norm back then, right? And now it's the opposite of best and final. You're dragging this on for weeks, but I do agree with building the team. Like my team was actually my attorney. He was putting in conditions. It was again first time home buyer, and living in a condo or a co-op. There's you obviously have shared walls, right? And they're thick. I've never heard my neighbors. So I was thinking sound, but he also said you need to think of smell. Because what if someone on your floor is constantly cooking a certain type of food and the smell goes through the air conditioning ducts or it goes in the hall? So, like all these different contingencies. And basically, the way to do that in a contract is to say if they filed a complaint to the HOA, they have to legally give you that complaint. So, if somehow the former owners said it was too smelly or too loud or too whatever, like literally like 10 different contingencies. But it's true. It's a good point,
I
right?
could
Like,
picture it. Imagine if someone's cooking like fish every night and that's like going
yeah,
through the air vents.
just
That would
like
not be fun.
spiced food, a bunch of right curry or whatever it is, and like, yeah, I want to eat it, but sometimes when you walk into someone's hall, you smell it. It's like maybe I don't want that, whatever it is, right? So it was interesting contingencies. I also went through. I think you know the story, like my tax issue, where they reassessed my property. We ended up uh, having to sue the former homeowners to pay their fair share of the taxes, basically, because it was back charged, and they wouldn't do it. And my attorney, thankfully, was like, "Listen, it's too expensive for you to hire me because it was, I don't know, 3 or 4 grand I was fighting over, which is a sizable chunk of change. But it was too expensive. I was just going to eat it away if I used him. So he just kind of tooled me. He's like, "Here's the contract. Here's the language that you need to use. Go get smart on this and that." And I went to court and I beat someone else's attorney, which is pretty cool. But to your point, like I would have never felt comfortable. I would have never felt like I could even win a battle if not for kind of him walking me through that process all at no cost, which is really nice of an attorney to do that because they charge by the minute. So I agreed, like building the team and it's a scary environment. I do think it's interesting. You just quickly on the rental thing, you mentioned that for the first time, I think in 30 years, it's cheaper to rent than it is to buy, as in like from a long term perspective, because that's
Oh
how
wow,
bad
that's kind of
interest rates are
crazy.
hitting the housing price. Yeah. So you could be paying for a 2 bedroom, 2 bath, let's call it a condo. You could be paying 3 grand in rent, but it would cost you $4,000 to own. So it just depends on the tenure of your investment and like how long you're going to stay in that property because that's how bad interest rates are as compared to housing prices. So pretty crazy right now. But thankfully, we both own homes. Sorry, Dom, for your future endeavors.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I
By the
like
time
my
you're ready,
condo.
you'll be all right.
I'd
Yeah,
rather
maybe. I'm
fucking
sure the
sit.
market will crash again. There's no way they can sustain this, so.
We're hoping
I'll
for it,
probably
right?
just rent for my entire life. That way I could just bounce around for when I get rich and I just go live in Thailand for
Do it. Oh my God, I was gonna say that. Get a fun place on the beach and do something.
Let's go to the beach.
I was actually talking to a coworker about our upcoming trip to Colombia, and he was like, "Oh, if you were going to, I think his friend lives in Peru. He's like, oh, if you were going to Peru, I would tell you to go visit my friend." I was like, oh, he moved to Peru, like for work? And he's like, no, he was a teacher and he bought a place in Peru and decided he loved it so much. So he moves to Peru and rents his house in New York. And that's his income.
That's great. That's the dream right there. And if I can make it big for my side hustle, which I can't speak about on the podcast, it's not illegal, don't worry, everybody. But due to disclosure agreements, I could work from anywhere. And that would be awesome if I could go to a beach in Peru or Iquitos. That's like an area like in the middle of the fucking rainforest and there's 500,000 people. It's incredible. But yes, I can't wait to talk more Colombia with you, Christina, over Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving's right around the corner. We're gonna close this interview pretty soon, but we like to throw some polls out there, and I think the poll of this week is gonna be favorite Thanksgiving sides. Chris, what are you looking forward to most on the Thanksgiving side menu?
I am looking forward to the stuffing. My mom makes like the best stuffing in the world. It's so good.
Haven't heard that before.
Oh my God, everyone says that. And one year we had like a combined Thanksgiving with like family friends of ours, and their mom made their stuffing, and it was so gross. It had like rice. I was like, and they're like, this is the best stuffing ever. And I was like, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever eaten in my life. My mom by far makes better stuffing. It was so disgusting.
Who was it? You could shame them on here.
It was Maria Mangelli. I do not enjoy the stuffing. But she started the meal off with pumpkin soup, and that was fire. So.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. What are you guys looking forward to the most?
I wish we had soup. I like my dad's pierogies. I think are so good. He's not a very good cook, but he does pierogies really well. And I told him, I was like, this year we should make a little dipping sauce to go with it. Never have a dipping sauce. And I was like,
aioli or something.
Yeah, so it's probably gonna be sour cream based. That's where my mind first went. Probably just gonna be sour cream and chives, to be honest. But I think it's gonna be fire. Bacon, onion, pierogies, sour cream, chives.
Oh my God, I have this really good Cajun seasoning. I feel like maybe we should put that in the sour cream. Like Cajun sour cream.
That might just be bold enough to work.
I know.
So. What about you, Justin?
Well, Christine and I were talking about what to bring for Thanksgiving. So we ended up on pumpkin pie cookies I'm going to do. But I mentioned, I was like, can I do something different? Can I do like chai flavor? She's like, absolutely. Like our family is not the person to try these flavors on. So we've decided to have our own personal.
Would you eat something chai? I mean, I definitely would try it. But what about you, Dom?
Yeah, of course.
Of course he would.
Well, as long as there's enough sugar in it.
I forgot.
Is that
I'm not going to give you a
chai
tea
is
bag.
Pretty basic white girl nowadays. Chai dirty latte.
Yeah, are you kidding me? You know what? There's good sides out there. I think, like, weirdly enough, I really like cornbread stuff, mostly because I like never eat it anytime else. So like a good cornbread with fresh corn, when it's a little underbaked in the middle, it's really nice.
I saw a video of this guy made a cornbread, but it was dude, it's fucking crazy. It was like a pineapple upside down cake.
Oh,
right? But it was cornbread.
Oh, that sounds good.
Wow.
With like a honey jalapeno glaze on the top.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
Oh my God, make that.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's
wait,
my
is that a side though, or is that a dessert? What did he serve it with?
No, it's the cornbread.
Yeah, he just made it in the shape of like the pineapple.
It just has like a honey kind of glaze on top of it.
Sounds good though. I don't like
thinly sliced jalapenos.
I don't like mashed potatoes. That's like the one thing I will never.
Thank you. I hate mashed potatoes. I think they're so gross.
Prison food.
I do not like the texture. It's a texture.
Yeah, it's prison food.
I just think it's very unsalted when people make it, and then you're just eating potatoes. All right, what's the most overrated side? Are you guys saying mashed potatoes?
Probably. I mean,
Probably. And honestly, the turkey. I really don't enjoy the turkey that much.
side.
Oh,
Yeah, I think everyone
that's
agrees that
true.
the
That's
turkey
true. It's the
sucks.
main event.
I feel like a bad green bean casserole is not good. But
You know,
it's really
I
not.
also do not care for, it's probably going to be unpopular, but that sweet potato thing with all the marshmallows
Oh,
on
I love
top,
that.
I don't
that.
like that.
I love that. Yeah.
You just don't like the mushy foods, it seems.
It's too sweet. The marshmallows are just like too much.
That's the purpose. It's a dessert. It's not a dessert, but it should be served.
Yeah.
We don't have mac and cheese. We should start to bring that.
We're not Southern, that's why. Oh,
that's fine. That is fine. I will make that sacrifice, and I'll eat.
You go for it.
I'm gonna make some mushrooms. I like making the mushrooms.
Never a thing I put on my plate.
That's fucked.
I'm just more about like
Do
mushrooms.
you not like mushrooms or just at part of Thanksgiving?
Like by themselves, they don't do it for me. I like them in a dish or on top. Like, give me a burger with mushrooms, I'm fine with. But
you can't even taste mushrooms on a burger. Don't even do anything for the burger.
Lies.
Oh my god, I love mushrooms.
Provide umami.
All right, well, they're gonna be delicious because they're oyster mushrooms and they're very expensive.
High-end mushrooms. H-Mart.
That just means it's more for me and you, Dom.
Yeah.
She's not gonna eat them.
And my dad, because I know he likes it.
Yeah, he loves mushrooms.
All right, well, I think that'll wrap it up. Chris, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Some
good luck. This will be a long-running show. I foresee it.
You know, next week will be our 4th guest, and the average podcast lasts. Is it 4 guests or 4 episodes, Dean? 3 episodes. So we have already surpassed that. So we are officially above average, and that's kind of what I strive for.
That's who Dom and I are in everything we try to do. Just get above average.
Just above average.
I mean,
exceeds expectations. Check.
Gotta shake it around.
Well, you know, Miss 1000% is on the waiting list.
Yeah, it'd be a good one for next week.
Sneak peek. Oh, shut up.
We'll figure it out with the holidays.
No, we don't. I mean, actually, we might need to take a break next week because
your travel day.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna be home and I won't have. I don't know how the logistics would work because we would like all need microphones now. I'll bring my pods home. I'm not gonna bring my laptop home though. Is that gonna be an issue? All right, we'll figure it out.
Cool. Christina, we'll see you Thursday.
All right, sounds good. See you guys Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.